So, a few days ago, chapter 150 of Gachiakuta dropped, and boy, was it beautiful. Getting to learn more about Gontus and Lily was extremely fascinating. But there was something that I had pointed out later on in that very same video that I thought about as time went on. And it's the idea of Gontus and Rudo being parallels of each other and how this should be a sign of what's to come for Rudo in the future. And, be a way to potentially stop that. But one of the questions that you may be wondering is, well, why is that so important? Let's start from the beginning. Rudo and Gontus both share a similar upbringing. Their original parents either died or disappeared. They were raised by adoptive parents or relatives in that matter. Both have ailments that do a number on their mental state. Not to mention, both have someone that they deeply care about. Whether that's platonic, romantic, or familial, each of them have people that they truly cherish. And the biggest thing that they have in common is wanting to get revenge on the people who treated them unfairly. The crazy thing about this commonality is the fact that this could be a precursor of what's to come for our protagonist, and how that very precursor could prevent Rudo from following down the path of revenge. Let's take into account Rudo's initial path. Rudo has been going down the path of revenge ever since he was framed for murder and dropped from the sphere. That very rage has been burning inside of him, constantly seeking out the one who set him up in the first place. But if you've been paying close attention to everything and everyone who's been placed around him as of late, you can see that fate is trying to move him in a different, more pragmatic way of life. That leads us to the meeting of Gontus. Gontus, although much older than Rudo, was headed down the same route. Blinded by greed, he fell into Mimo's plans and is now being forced to do his bidding. But how does this relate the two of them, you ask? Well, in the latest chapter, Gontus says something that brought this idea into fruition. Rudo, do not let your goal take you captive. When your goal consumes you, you lose sight of what matters most. Gontus understands better than anyone else what a blind pursuit of a goal and revenge can lead to. What Rudo is seeing in front of him is the very thing he'd become if he was to follow through with his original idea of revenge. Now, there's also a few other characters that this could eventually mirror or lead in front of to, because you got to remember, Zodil is also something that Rudo could have become or could still become, if you want me to be real, if he follows through with his ideals. But I'll save that for another video because this was just about Gontus in general. This was something that I brought up in my previous video. Gontus may have initially got what he wanted, but what did it cost him? It cost him everything. His grandparents, his livelihood, his sanity, and potentially the one that he cherishes the most, which is Lily. And I feel like this has come at the perfect time for Rudo because, as we can see from this arc, his heart is still tainted by the idea of revenge. There's still a lot of hatred burrowed deep within Rudo's heart. Because think about it, right? As soon as he heard the name Alto Sherbrick uttered out of Lily's mouth, he became enraged and almost blinded again from the task at hand. Because I literally mentioned this before, that it's eerily similar to when he went off in a blind rage against Amo and, got to beating her before he got what he wanted, before he got the information that they originally went there for. For me, I hope this arc and Gontus as a character serves as a teachable moment, at least another teachable moment for our young Rudo. You need to rid yourself of not only the idea that revenge is the only way to get what you want, but to not be blinded by your goals either. Because if you look closely at the man in front of you, it only potentially leads to a fate much worse than death. But as for someone who only wants the best for our protagonist, I guess this comes across as too nice of an outcome for him. Because if you let Twitter tell you he needs to suffer more, he needs to break, he needs to lose more than he already has because apparently the story ordains it, which I don't know if we're reading the same story, but that is quite literally the antithesis of what Urana Sensei is creating. But who am I to tell you that, other than the man who's not only read this manga from front to back hundreds of times, but the guy who's been covering it, the guy who's picked up on majority of what's going on in the story, the guy who's predicted pretty much everything that's been going on in the story. You know, who am I to tell you guys what to believe? Or at least give you thoughts on, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, this was just a quick thought I had to get off of my mind because if I didn't, I probably would have forgotten to make this video. I truly want to get in the habit of making more videos, but my hardware is literally only able to produce one video a day without potentially kicking the bucket. So on that end, I'll try to figure something out. Anyway, that'll do it all for today. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new. Thank y'all for continuing to support me the way y'all have over these last, it's been like 3 years now. We're growing into a much respected corner of the manga space, and more than just that, the YouTube space in general. We for sure will make it to that 20,000 subscriber mark, so don't y'all worry. Anyway, I'm gonna get out of here and edit this video. Y'all enjoy y'all morning, afternoon, or night, wherever y'all are. I'm DomoSenpai, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.